Hello and welcome. It is 9 o'clock. It is the 4th day of August 2021. It is RPG A Day 2021, Day 4. And today's prompts kind of suck. Actually, all the prompts this month kind of suck compared to the last ones. But today's prompts, we have a choice of weapon, search, reward, or figure. So I'm going with weapon. And when I think about weapon, of course, I think about spellcasters. When I think about spellcasters, I think about OSE spellcasters, the OSE wizards of the days of yore who started with one spell and a D4 hit points and were pretty useless until they got that first third level spell. And more often than not, that first third level spell was Fireball. And then those OSE wizards of lore went from being useless, to the single most dangerous thing in the game. A threat to both the monsters and their fellow party members, because nobody really cared. That fireball was going to fill that 20-foot radius no matter what. And remember, Nagadine's theorem says your fireball will do an amount of damage directly proportional to the amount of friends that are in the radius. So the more friends in the radius, the more damage your fireball will do. And I can't start thinking about fireballs with, of course, not thinking about the single greatest story revolving a fireball that I have in my personal collection. That's right, it's RPG A Day, and we cannot go RPG A Day without telling the Rodger and the Fireball story, a story I never get tired of telling and hopefully brings you as much joy and laughter as it does me. If you haven't heard the story before, put on your safety belts and sit back for one of the greatest moments in my role-playing game history as a DM. And if you have heard the story before, hopefully you will enjoy it again, or you can stop listening to it now. But I tell this story every year. Once upon a time, I was running a very long campaign set in and around the world of Freeport, Green Ronin Games Freeport setting. And three mini campaigns spiraled off of that main campaign. And one of the mini campaigns was me basically running Hal from the North / Against the Giants, or a version thereof. Our brave heroes were going through the Hill Giant version of the adventure, and they were in the Hill Giant Keep. They were in this barbaric area. They'd made some friends with some tribes. They'd gotten supplies, and they'd snuck in, and they were dealing with the various machinations that was going on in the Hill Giant. No, wait, was it Hill Giant? No, it was the Frost Giants. I'm sorry. It was the Frost Giant setting. Yeah, it was the second one, because now I remember. Yeah, it was the Frost Giant one. They were in the big Frost Giant caves. There was this whole Shakespearean Hamlet thing going on that I was running, where the Frost Giant queen had been murdered, and the Frost Giant uncle had taken over the throne, and the Frost Giant son was trying to kill the uncle. It was basically Hamlet that they sort of stumbled upon, and then proceeded to upset the Frost Giants, and then run into the Frost Giant caves in a way to escape. So we have our brave adventurers in this cave trying to find a way out. And while they're wandering around in the cave, they see a small opening. And they look through the opening, and they see it is the den of a dire bear and her 2 cubs. And at the far end of the den, they think they see a way out. Now, amongst the party was a gnome alchemist. This is important. A gnome alchemist. And throughout the adventure, the gnome alchemist had been collecting various reagents for his alchemy, like alchemical fire, black powder. Basically, they had a sort of D&D version of dynamite that they had found. A lot of destructive chemicals, plus a couple magic items were in his possession. The gnome is the only individual big enough / small enough to fit through the hole. So the gnome fits through the hole, and I ask the gnome to roll a stealth. And the gnome's player rolls really low. So the mama bear has heard him. I roll the mama bear's reaction, remembering that gnomes have a tendency, at least in that version of the game, because this wasn't 5e, to have the ability to, make friends with animals, and they had the speak with small animals thing. So I rolled the bear's reaction, and I rolled pretty high. So in her hibernated state, Mama Bear thought the gnome was one of the cubs trying to get away. So she just grabs the gnome and scoops it up underneath her and goes back to sleep. So our gnome is trapped under several hundred pounds of giant Mama Dire Bear with 2 Dire Bear cubs on either side of him. And he's freaking out. The party's freaking out. Now, in my mind, I know he's pretty much perfectly safe as long as he doesn't antagonize the bear, because the bear thinks he's one of the cubs. So he could probably figure out a way out. In addition, when I'm looking at the treasure the bear has in that encounter, it says, amongst other things, there's a rod of passage. So if you're not familiar with what the rod of passage was back in that version of the D20 game, it's basically a magic item that lets you get out of situations. It has spells like teleport, move earth, tunnel, make door, stuff like that. Basically, it does what it says it does. It makes passages. It helps you escape. It lets you get from one place to another. So all the gnome player had to do was reach around in the den and the collection of feathers and poop and whatever else the bears were sleeping on, find the rod, at which point I would have given him a chance to figure out what it was, and escape. So the gnome's not in any danger. Let us remember that A, the gnome's not in any danger. B, the gnome is an alchemist. It has a bunch of weird stuff on him. Now we go to the other side, where the players are looking through the hole, and they see this big, gigantic bear scoop up the gnome and basically sit on top of him, and they're all like thinking he's dead. They're trying not to act on player knowledge. Nobody except knows that the gnome is not in danger. The gnome player is starting to figure out that, oh wait, I'm okay. He's trying to what can I can see in his player's mind that he's, what do I have in my utility belt of spells? Is there a way out of this? Can I just convince her to let me go? She thinks I'm one of her cubs. But the players just see through this hole that he's been scooped up by Mama Bear, and they start freaking out. How are we going to get him out? How are we going to get him out? How are we going to rescue him? We can't fit through the hole. Should we toss him a rope? Should we provoke the bear? Maybe shoot an arrow at her to get her to stand up and hope he can make it to the exit, or hope he can make it back to us. Each one of them is tossing out ideas. Now, amongst the players, we have Rodger, who's playing a wizard named Kel 10, and Tristan, who's playing that wizard's twin brother, named 10 Kel. And they had basically been playing twin wizards, and they had, each picked the opposite spells. So if Rodger picked light, Tristan picked darkness, stuff like that. Rodger says, I cast Fireball. I look at him, and I go, are you sure? He goes, yeah, I cast Fireball. I cast Fireball through the hole, centered on Mama Bear. Okay, roll your damage, and then I'll roll her save. All right, so he rolls pretty much max damage. This is a huge fireball. Plus, he has some ability to make, I don't remember, I think it was Pathfinder. He had some feat to make his spells more effective. So, meta magic. So he had the meta magic version that the fireball would do a lot of damage. So he does that because he really wants to kill Mama Bear. The fireball goes off. All this damage goes off. The gnome alchemist is within the 20-foot radius of the fireball. In fact, this entire cave pretty much acts like a kiln because of the fireball. It has to take up all its 20-foot radius. And there's all this stuff in the cave to catch fire. Mama Bear fails her save. The Cubs fails her save. I asked the Gnomes player, dude, make your saving throw versus Fireball because you're in the radius. At which point Rodger's like, wait, what? Of course, sadly, he fails his saving throw. And I tell him the damage, and he's like, nope, I'm dead, dude. I'm dead. And I'm like, okay, what do you have on you? At which point he lists off all the things his alchemist was carrying when he got hit by the fireball. including several vials of alchemist fire and black powder, as well as several other chemicals. So those all get affected by the fireball because he died and failed his save. And the fire just grows. It hits that alchemical fire and it hits that black powder and just doubles in size and is doing more and more damage. Then I'm like, oh wait, there's magic items in there, aren't though? What happens if the magic item fails its save? Do we get like some type of magic backfire? So I rolled a saving throw for the magic item in the room. And of course the Rod of Passage and the magic item, the other magic items and the magic potions, I'm just, saving throws are being failed left and right. The explosion just gets huger and huger and huger. They're all panicking. They're all, screaming, yelling. How are they going to get out of here? Each one of them's trying to come up with ways to get out of here. I'm having them all roll saves versus this backdraft giant, basically nuclear explosion of just retroactive fireball slash black powder slash alchemical fire slash blowing up magic items, and just expanding and expanding. As just, we're all laughing, we're all crying, we're all, what are we going to do? One person rolls a natural 20 for their save, and I'm like, okay, somehow the fire just shoots you out, and you like just somehow James Bond your way down the icy side of the mountain to safety. But almost everybody else is either rolling, barely making their saves, or failing their saves. One of the characters, well, actually the NPC, has the ability to create a Dimension Door. But Dimension Door only allows you to carry so many individuals. So he's doing his Dimension Door. He's throwing as many people as he can in the Dimension Door. It comes down to Ken Tell and Tell Ken, Rodger and Tristan's character. Tristan pushes Rodger's character in and sacrifices himself to save his brother. So he dies in the fireball. The fireball just explodes. All I can do is say, from the point of view of the villagers, they will speak for years of the day the mountain burst into flames and the night turned to daylight. The few survivors make their way out via the Dimension Door or other things. They're laying there in the snow. The players are laughing. The players are, the guy whose gnome alchemist died, he's kind of upset, but he also thinks it's hilarious that just this series of catastrophes happened. Finally, after a couple minutes of just apologizing and figuring out, and how do we want to bring in new characters? Is there a way to save so-and-so? The laughing starts to die down. And finally, I look at Rodger and I go, why did you cast Fireball? Of all the spells in your repertoire, why did you cast the one spell that would do the most damage? And he looks at me straight-faced and says, I thought Fireball was a precision spell. I thought Fireball was a precision spell. He thought it would only affect one target. I don't know if he didn't read the description of the 20-foot radius. I don't know if he thought he was casting a different spell. But no, Fireball is a 20-foot radius, multiple D6 spell. It's designed to take out groups. It is not a precision spell. Magic Missile is a precision spell. Shooting an arrow is a precision spell. Ray of Enfeeblement is a precision spell. Fireball kills every motherfucker in the room. Straight-faced, not laughing, totally serious. I thought Fireball was a precision spell. And for almost 3 years, every time the story came up, he still clung to the belief that Fireball was a precision spell as far as he understood it. And he didn't know that that was going to happen. And that just made everybody laugh the more. Because Fireball is not a precision spell. Fireball is the single most dangerous weapon in the arsenal of a wizard. We all know from the many years of the OSR when the D&D wizard only had a 4 hit points and only had 1 spell at first level. If he's lucky enough to get to 3rd level, he maybe picks up a second level spell, but it's something crappy like bull strength. But really, you don't become a full-fledged danger to the world until you're 5th level and you get that 3rd level spell, and that 3rd level spell is always Fireball. And then, I don't care who's in the radius, I cast Fireball. And we know that the more friends that are in the radius, the more damage the Fireball will do. Fireball is not a precision spell, Rodger, but I do love this story. So, RPG a Day 2021, weapon, Fireball, the single most dangerous weapon in the arsenal of a wizard and the greatest threat to parties and player characters throughout the history of the game. Your party wizard is the single greatest danger to your party. Not the monsters, not the world, that Fireball spell. RPG a Day 2021. If you appreciate this content and want to hear more, let me know. We'll be doing this all month, so check it out. Till next time, stay warm, stay dry. Remember, Fireball is not a precision spell. It's my birthday. You always have to get me presents. I will talk to you later. Miss you, Rodger, wherever you are.